in the space industry, and that includes those that helped launch 140 Atlas II
Okay,
and
am
3
I
launches
live
that took
now?
place from LC-36. That include the Mariner, Pioneer, and
Folks,
Surveyor missions. And those missions sent spacecraft to
in
explore
any
Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, Mercury, and
welcome.
the
Once
surface
again,
of
good
the moon.
evening
Now,
to
given that
viewers in Europe
incredible
and
history,
Africa. Good
how
afternoon
awesome is
to
it that our
viewers
second
throughout
Newgland
North and
mission
South
is an
America,
interplanetary
and good
mission
very
to
early morning to
Mars?
our viewers
It
in the
is. So
Pacific Rim, and welcome
today's
to the Angry
mission is called
Astronauts live
ESCAPADE. It's a
coverage
dual
of
spacecraft
the
mission. They're
New Glenn
twin
slash
satellites.
Rocket
And
Lab
eventually, those two
NASA
satellites are headed
ESCAPADE
all the way to Mars,
mission.
and they're going to
So
investigate
yeah, this is going to be a good one tonight. Hope been some misgivings, a little bit of confusion as to whether or not they're going to allow this thing to launch. There have been some complications with the FAA as a result of all of the government shutdown nonsense. There are more restrictions apparently these days as to when rockets can fly. I mean, as of just a few hours ago, Blue Origin was talking about how they were working things out with the FAA. So there still wasn't an official thumbs up or thumbs down as to whether or not this launch was going to be doable. Given what we're seeing on the screen right now, it seems very likely that we have a legitimate flight. And as you can see, the Blue Origin feed is going right in front of us. Before I bring them live, though, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about some things regarding this mission that Blue Origin isn't going to say. The Escapade mission was supposed to fly yesterday. By the way, feel free to check in from wherever you're watching from. I see South Florida, Northern Kentucky, California, etc. Thanks very much. Yes, indeed, Blue Origin is sending something to Mars. So let me go ahead and once again, hello, Four Marks, hello, Orkney Islands. Really appreciate you watching in Las Vegas. Thanks very much for checking in. Southwest Florida, hello, Nottinghamshire, Norfolk, Virginia, and also South Delaware, Parsippany, New Jersey, and the Netherlands. Thanks very much for watching today. We don't have a huge crowd joining us at the moment, but that crowd may grow as time goes on. Let's see, who else do we have? Oye County, Idaho, rather, and South Florida, and East Devon. Hello, thank you very much for checking in today. So here we go. In terms of what Blue Origin's not gonna tell you about this mission, it should have gone last year. It should have gone in 2024 on the maiden flight of New Glenn. That was the original intention, because for those of you who are familiar with, Mars missions, in the past, in almost every case, Mars missions have been launched at a time that is convenient, at a time where the 2 planets are relatively close to one another, and so therefore a spacecraft doesn't have to traverse as much distance in order to reach its destination. But that conjunction, that close approach was last year, not this year. So originally the idea, thank you very much, John Morgan. I really appreciate the dinner. Thank you so much for your support. So the idea was is to launch it last year, maiden launch of New Glenn. That was the original plan. And as a matter of fact, Rocket Lab, who manufactured the 2 spacecraft that are going to be launched today, they rushed the construction and delivery of their spacecraft in order to get to the Cape in time for this launch. They moved heaven and earth to make this happen. And then lo and behold, Blue Origin wasn't ready to launch on time with New Glenn. Yet another delay out of so many that have happened with New Glenn, and this one messed up the Escapade launch. But in addition to that, NASA and frankly Rocket Lab and others were not really comfortable with the idea of launching this pretty important scientific mission on the maiden flight of a brand new rocket, New Glenn, from a company that had never flown anything to orbit before. That was another complication that they didn't want to have to deal with. So New Glenn launched without a payload. It had a dummy payload on board, pretty heavy one. It flew to a very high orbit. demonstrate its capabilities. It failed to land its booster. It was largely thought that that was going to happen, that Blue Origin would not be able to successfully land their booster on the first try on their barge, on the retrieval barge called the Jacqueline. Thank you very much, Nick. Really appreciate your support. Thanks so much. And like I say, you guys' support today, that's what allows me to continue making content like this, content that may not be quite as popular right now as things like Free Eye Atlas, but still extremely important, and I know very popular to a lot of you guys. So in any event, they couldn't fly it, and as a result, this ESCAPADE mission is launching at a very inopportune time to go to Mars. So how is this going to work, given the fact that Mars is a long way away from Earth at the moment, really out of position? How are they going to get Escapade all the way out to Mars? Well, they have a unique plan, and this plan has never been implemented before. The idea is to fly the two Escapade ships out to a location called Lagrange Point 2, LG2. And what that is, it's a parking lot of sorts, a gravitational parking lot where the sun's gravity and the Earth's gravity balance one another out. And it's a location that's further away from the sun than Earth is. There are two Lagrange points, LG1 being closer to the sun, LG2 being further away from the sun. These two spacecraft are going to loiter at LG2, just kind of fly around and around and around in circles there for about a year, waiting for Mars to eventually orbit the sun and come back into position. And then the escapade ships will make their way towards Mars. Now, as frustrating and as useless as this seems in many ways, it's actually a very good idea to try this kind of flight configuration because it's given launch cadences, it's difficult to launch rocket after rocket after rocket after rocket when Mars and Earth happen to be close together. Hello, am inspiring? Really, really appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you for the support and for the kind words. So that being said, it's good to actually test out this type of mission profile because in the future, if there is a base on Mars, shall we say, instead of as far as resupply missions are concerned, instead of stacking up a bunch of rockets to launch during that very narrow window when Earth and Mars happen to be close to one another for resupply missions, not for human rated missions, but for resupply missions, you could launch year round and have those missions loiter at LG2 until Mars comes into position and then fly the resupply cargoes to their destination. That way, you can send a lot more cargo over an extended period of time instead of trying to jam up a whole bunch of launches into one place. Granted, it isn't that useful right now, but in the future, once we establish, a sizable presence on the Martian surface, then there's a very good chance that this type of mission configuration could work out very well. So this is going to be an interesting experiment in it. However, there is a one big drawback with doing things this way. When you have these spacecraft loitering at LG2 for all that time, if there is a major solar storm of some kind, a CME or coronal mass ejection, and we've been seeing lots of those lately because the sun is incredibly active, these spacecraft are going to be a lot more vulnerable to those solar storms because they're going to be in transit for a much longer period of time than they would under normal circumstances. So that is going to be a bit of a problem as far as that goes. And as I said, these are the sorts of things that Blue Origin wouldn't tell you about this mission simply because they don't want to admit that their scheduling and their ongoing delays with New Glenn created this situation whereby they had to come up with sort of a unique way of getting Escapade out to Mars. So, in any event, Escapade, as many of you probably know, is a mission that's going to study Mars' atmosphere and the effects of the solar wind on Mars' atmosphere to gain more information on how the atmosphere gets stripped away from the planet by the solar wind, because Mars doesn't have much in the way of a magnetic field to protect its atmosphere. So that's the primary motivation behind the mission. But once again, it's going to be interesting because there are other things behind this. Uh, that being the case, we've seen a few super chats tonight, and I guess we have a goal that's been set by our producer. I actually don't even know what the goal is. I'm assuming it's probably 10 super chats. That's what he usually does. He producer didn't know this, but I'm going to give away a shirt. I'm giving away a 3-Eye Atlas shirt tonight to one random super chat supporter at the end of the broadcast. So make sure you hang around. We will select one of the super chat donors to receive this exact shirt. It's an extra large. If you don't wear extra large, I have a couple other varieties I might be able to work with. But in any event, I will personally deliver that shirt to you, assuming you don't work in some really remote area. I assume you don't live in some really remote area that has incredible shipping costs. If you do, we may have to talk about the cost of shipping a little bit. But otherwise, if you live in Europe or if you live in the United States, Australia, something like that, I'll pay for the shipping for you folks. So we're giving away one shirt to a random super chat supporter if we hit that goal. But the goal is 5 super chats at this point. We have 5 to go in order to hit the goal. And if we hit the goal, I'll give away one random shirt. So in any event, we have the launch coming up in just under half an hour, and we're going to go ahead, if you can, for me, producer, and bring up Blue Origin's broadcast at this point.
A jet engine, we can power up, we can also smoothly power back. The other thing is that they're built to operate in space. It's difficult, it's hard, it's different in the sense that you're operating in a vacuum. It means that there's no oxygen, there's no air pressure, it's really cold up there, so you have to change how you tweak the engineering of the engine. So we should also know that we've got a lot of experience with these types of engines. It's very similar to what flies on New Shepard. So we've got over a decade of experience with operating liquid hydrogen, which is a big deal. But that's just one of the many ties between the two programs.
Thank you so much, Plastic Pinocchio.
Show off how they're tied together because that's on purpose.
Certainly, and we also have to talk about something, which is we have a new leader at the helm of New Glenn.
We do. Jordan Charles. He's my new boss. He's the new head of New Glenn. He joined Blue Origin 8 years ago and has successfully led the GS1 team, the team that does the first stage of New Glenn for 3 of those 8 years. I can tell you, he's been my boss since about August, and he has a fantastic leadership style, and his experience is going to be really important as we move into this new chapter of New Glenn, which is, okay, we know that this rocket works and works very well and successfully, as we saw on New Glenn 1, but now it's about scaling up, getting to rate, launching, landing, repeating.
Certainly it is, and it's so great to have Jordan leading this program. Now, for today, we also have these 2 primary objectives for New Glenn. The first, of course, to safely deploy the ESCAPADE payload and deliver for our customers. Also on board is a technology demonstrator from Viasat in support of NASA's Communications Services project.
That's right, and our second objective, we're taking our second attempt at landing the booster for the first time. And I'm warning you, Tabitha, if this happens, I will lose my mind on the desk.
Girl.
I am so warning everybody here on set. It's going to happen. And, you know, we're feeling really optimistic, but I should say we're in rockets, so I should say cautiously optimistic about the improvements that we've made to the booster. But regardless of what happens, whether we're successful on that second objective or not, we are going to keep learning and refining and applying all of that information to the next rockets that are on the floor right behind us here.
Yeah, and we already have several more vehicles.
Thank you
in
so much,
production, as you said,
Untouchable.
right
Thank you.
behind us. And landing the booster, as we mentioned, is no easy undertaking. Our team, and myself included in that, recently had the opportunity to spend a day at sea with our Jack and crew and learn more about the operations of landing and securing the booster, an operation and moment that will change the course of Blue Origin history. Check it out.
The Jacqueline is the landing platform vessel where New Glenn will come down, land, and we secure it and bring it back in.
She's 380 foot long, 150 foot wide, and she's a self-propelled vessel. We are the recovery side of the operation.
Okay, we've got copyrighted music at the moment here. So real quick, I wanted to reemphasize there's misunderstanding. Some people are thinking that the booster is going to be loitering and come back in here. That's not the case. The booster is going to come straight back and try to land on the Jacqueline barge. The Escapade spacecraft that are on their way to Mars, those are going to loiter at Lagrange point 2. And again, the reason that is the case is because Earth and Mars are out of position with one another. There's a huge separation between the two planets right now. Not a great time to be launching Mars missions. So instead of delaying it for another year, they're going to launch now. The Escapade spacecraft are going to wait at Lagrange point 2, a sort of a parking lot where the sun and the Earth's gravity balances one another out, and then wait for Mars to come around. And when Mars orbits to where it's in a better position, then the Escapade spacecraft will complete their mission after doing a flyby of the Earth to pick up a little bit of extra gravitational slingshot speed. So yeah, it's a very different mission. We've never tried to do a Mars mission like this. Again, the reason it was done this way is because they weren't able to launch on time last year because of New Glenn. New Glenn wasn't ready to carry out the mission that it was supposed to last year, and so now they're going to try to do this unique mission configuration. Thank you. I really appreciate your support there. Inspiring, or I'm inspiring. Really, really appreciate it. Do I think they'll make it? Yeah, I think they will. Rocket Lab, they know what they're doing when it comes to building spacecraft. And New Glenn's looking impressive right now. Of course, it's only flown once, but it flew very well. So I'm feeling good about this. I think New Glenn has a decent chance. Does the booster have a decent chance of coming back safely? No. I would say that they'll be lucky if they can hit the barge with it, and then blow it up in the process. But who knows? Maybe SpaceX has surprised us. Maybe Blue Origin can surprise us too. You can go ahead and bring them back, please, producer.
Nice to bring you onto the webcast.
No, I'm glad to be here. It's just such an exciting day.
It is. So how are you feeling about today? What are you doing here?
Oh, well, I'm working on console, working with the team, super excited. It is just an amazing day. We've waited a long time for this. This is for us such a day of firsts. First NASA science mission on a New Glenn, first heliophysics mission going to Mars, first interplanetary spacecraft for Rocket Labs. All of these really amazing things, and for me the excitement is it's really the first mission that we are going to launch for Artemis to be able to start getting ready to protect our crews when they go to Mars. Super excited about Artemis 2 next year, launching to the moon, and then NASA Science, we are eyes on Mars.
Oh, we're all eyes on Escapade and Mars today, aren't we?
Amazing. Isn't this nice that I believe your background is in heliophysics? How is it? How do you feel about going to Mars? Like we're mixing it up in the solar system for you.
Well, I will tell you, for heliophysics, the moment you leave the Earth's atmosphere, you're traveling in my neighborhood.
That's fair.
Right? Heliophysics goes all the way from the center of the sun to the very outer edge of our solar system. So I actually was one of the, I got to select this mission, so could not be more excited to be here with my amazing heliophysics team getting ready to launch this mission.
And especially given the advanced space has made this extraordinary a trajectory
Right.
that,
Yes.
that the two
Yes.
spacecraft are going to fly around L2, but also
Thank you
at a
again.
first
I'm
time ever.
aspiring.
First time ever, and it actually
Wow, you're
unlocks
gonna get us
a
there
lot
all
of
by yourself.
possibilities for us thinking about Mars going forward, because now maybe we're not stuck with these Mars launch windows.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's such a fantastic day.
Great.
Really
Okay.
briefly, like,
Thank
can
you,
you
Grace.
explain that for our viewers? Because what we're doing is we're kind of doing it in the middle period where we normally wouldn't send something to Mars, but
We
we're going to
normally
sit it and
wouldn't.
let it wait. So explain that.
We are. So we don't have to wait another basically 13 months for Mars to get exactly in the right place and then launch. We are launching the mission. It's going to basically hang out and then wait for Mars to come into the right location and then accelerate full speed ahead to Mars. So it's just a really great, yet another mission of firsts. Yeah.
So many great things. Dr. Fox, thank you for taking the time. I'm sorry I had to grab you, but we couldn't pass up this opportunity.
Well, and I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank Blue Origin for their amazing partnership on the New Glenn. I want to thank Rocket Labs for all the work they've done, the amazing team at NASA Goddard, my incredible team at NASA headquarters.
Shauna, thank you. And we
know,
just
we
hit our
deliver,
goal
they
because
crush
of
it
you,
every day,
Shauna.
delivering for the
Thank
nation,
you. Although if you
inspiring
want
the
to be
world.
in
Thank
the
you.
drawing
It is an honor
for the
to
shirt,
fly a NASA payload
still
on
throw
New
a super
Glenn
chat
today.
on
That
there,
you
and
trust
you will
us
be
with your
included.
technology like that, it means a lot. It's first of many to come, we hope.
First of many to come.
Oh,
Thank you so
much,
much.
Dr.
Thank
Fox.
you.
Appreciate
Gotta
it.
get back to the console. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye. Well, with that, I mean, it's so great to add people to the webcast team today. But let's throw it back over to Eddie. Eddie, he is out. He is out with a great view in Rocket Park. And Eddie, who you got there?
Yeah, hey Tabitha, hey Ariane. We know going to space is a team effort, and I've got one of those key teammates with me today. This is Tim Fisher, one of the chief engineers of Blue Moon, and behind us is Lunar Plant 1 that has 2.5 million square feet. Well, it brings our Rocket Park facilities to 2.5 million square feet of production space. Tim, what happens in the building behind us?
Well, we're building our Mark II crewed lander, one of the biggest spacecraft ever, and our cislunar transporter, another humongous spacecraft, almost as big as the upper stage of New Glenn. And we even have parts of our second serial number of the Mark I lander in there right now.
No, it's very exciting what this team gets to do on a daily basis, helping NASA, helping Blue return to the moon, this time to stay. Tim, what makes our lunar lander so special?
Well, we're here for reusability and sustainability. We've chosen a lander architecture that someday we can refuel and reuse and go back and forth to the moon several times with the same lander.
This is exciting, right? This is the stuff of science fiction, and Tim and his team are making it happen, and soon, right? Tell us about Mark I. What is that about?
So Mark I is our Pathfinder. It's using a lot of the same technologies. It's a hydrogen-oxygen lunar lander, and we are aiming it for the moon this spring, and it's going to prove out a lot of the technologies we need to get the crewed lander.
Tabitha, Ariane, I'm excited to return to the moon, this time to stay. What else can we answer here?
I love it. Eddie, I mean, you saw in the video, we had some B-roll playing back there. You can see with the cars for scale and the massive building. Can you talk a little bit about why it's so big? I mean, our lunar landers, you know, are not necessarily going to be that big. Why does the building need to be that big?
Yeah, no, Tim and I were just talking about this, right? The Mark II crew lander that will be ready soon, it stands over 16 meters tall. So you have to encapsulate that in the very large New Glenn fairing, and that happens in the building behind us. So then we can send that payload fairing to the integration facility at LC-36 and get it ready to New Glenn and launch it to the moon.
Fantastic. I should note, Tabitha, that there's the co-location component of this is so important from a production and ease and operation standpoint. I should also say that's one of the reasons why we built our rocket factory here in Florida. We're the first company organization to build rockets that they then launch out of here also in Florida. And the co-location in principle is supposed to make this, just make the operations faster, smoother, cut down the time, cut down the risk. Anytime you're transporting a rocket, you're taking risk, right? So we want to cut that down. It's cutting down on the risk, cutting down on the operations. But what is also nice is that the team that's going to be building the lunar the lunar payload and our lunar landers out here get the opportunity to come walk, you know, a couple hundred feet down the road and then come and talk to the engineers that are here building New Glenn. So the co-location, we do have several locations around the U.S., but by now, in terms of number of people and programs and things, Florida is starting to become a little bit more, let's say, the center of our operational
Certainly.
gravity, if you will. And so we're so fortunate that we decided to create such a large campus here in Florida to then be able to add, as appropriate, the other programs, not just the New Glenn program.
Right, certainly continuing to build in many ways, and of course, build the road to space for the benefit of Earth. Yes. Well, if you are just joining us, I wanted to let you guys know you've got a live look there from Huntsville. Everyone is getting so pumped up for NG2. But right now, we are at L minus 48 minutes, about 45 seconds. You might be like, wait a minute, I thought we were a little closer to launch than that. Well, that is because we do have a reset of the clock to allow for weather conditions to clear for launch. That is Kent Washington.
Go Kent, losing it.
Oh, yeah. I like the guy with the flag. I like whoever's job it is, make sure they're the hype man with the flag.
That is Doug Gross. He is, I want to say, first couple dozen of employees.
Really?
That man has been here. He's a legend at our company. So if we've given him flag bearer, he's
earned that honor. Hype man for today. Such an exciting day for all of us here at Blue Origin. But right now, we're going to take a moment. We're going to throw it right over to this beautiful rocket. Let you sit with it there on the pad as we are continuing the process for NG2.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit more of a narrative for you. The New Glenn, this is, as you've heard, this is the second launch of this rocket. It's an interesting hybrid, if you want to compare it to SpaceX rockets, of Falcon Heavy, Falcon 9, but also of Starship. For one thing, it's a huge fairing, 7 meters in diameter, about double the volume that Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy have. So this thing's capable of taking very big payloads, very sizable payloads as far as volume are concerned. But in addition to that, the upper stage is powered by hydrolox engines. That's where it makes it different from any SpaceX rocket. SpaceX has a unified propulsion system all the way through their rockets, whereas New Glenn does not. It is powered by methalox engines or something similar to methalox, the liquid gas, which is essentially methane. There's a tiny, tiny difference there. The SpaceX employee will be quick to point out. So you have that for the first stage where you need lots and lots and lots of thrust. And methyl, you do get a lot of power, a lot of bang for your buck out of methane. But on the upper stage, hydrolox engines tend to have a higher ISP. They tend to burn for a much longer period of time. That fire that's burning, they're just burning off excess methane. That's what that is. It's an entirely normal thing with any sort of any sort of methane pumping process. So in any event, the main reason, in my opinion, that Blue Origin's decided to go with hydrolox for their upper stage, in other words, hydrogen and oxygen, is because that is the type of propellant you're going to find on the moon. The moon has a lot of water ice, especially at the South Pole. Water is obviously H2O, meaning that you can break down that oxygen and that hydrogen into the components necessary to make your own propellant on the moon. So the idea is that New Glenn, Blue Origin, wants to make use of lunar-based propellant because Jeff Bezos's main target is the moon. That's what he's going after more aggressively than any other target in the solar system. Whereas Starship runs off of methalox on the first and second stage, and that's simply because Mars, you get methane. There's methane available on Mars because of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. You can utilize carbon through a process called the Sabatier method and make your own methalox on Mars. So New Glenn is, as far as propellant is concerned anyway, is better designed for the moon, and Starship is better designed, in my opinion, for Mars. Okay, uh, let's go ahead and bring him back, producer.
They're the ones that build New Glenn GS1, GS2, that put Escapade on top of that rocket, and they're here to see a launch. Who's ready for a launch?
Eddie, it's so great to be able to see so many people come out on a Sunday, by the way. That just shows you, as you said, the heartbeat of New Glenn. What are they talking about? What are they most excited about today?
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, this crowd is hyped, as you mentioned, on a Sunday. We're just so excited to be here. It's about what we do day in and day out for our mission, and our family and friends that let us do this. That's what everybody's talking about.
Yeah, I could definitely feel that. The crowd has been growing, too. Goodness, at L minus 30. 43 minutes. I mean, Ariane, we're feeling it. We're here at the desk. We're isolated, but we feel just as pumped as they do.
Just as pumped. And what gets me, like, as a nerd, even if you're not a space nerd, look at that image. That is
stunning.
So cool. Like,
well, yeah, what's happening to it right now?
So basically, this rocket is fully fueled. We've got the liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen on the second stage. That's what you see there on the top. And then you'll see the fins there, and just below the fins, there you go. That's the New Glenn first stage with liquefied natural gas and liquid oxygen in there. And it looks like it looks like it's steaming, but it's quite the contrary. It's really, really cold. So what you see, you can barely see New Glenn on the side of the rocket there, and it's so cool.
It is really, I mean, that's the right
like
word.
A nerd. I'm
it's
sorry.
cool because it's cool.
I know. I had kids, but like my husband, I'm popping out dad jokes. It's really awful. It happens. But anyway, it is, the rocket is looking really, really good. I should say, Tabitha, the team has been working so hard over the last couple of days to get that rocket ready. And in particular, we learned so much on NG1. So much. This is the first time you do something, okay, like you design it one way, but you don't really see how things are going to click and connect physically on the rocket, but also from a team perspective, from an operational perspective, until you do it. And so we learned so much on NG1, and to see the speed and the improvement on NG2 has been amazing. Last week, so I was down here last week for what we call integrated hot fire. So what we do is we stack the rocket, looked exactly like this. We hold down the rocket, and we fire the 7 BE4 engines. There you see the base of the rocket, those 7 BE4 engines.
Super powerful.
Just to make sure that everything is flowing and working right. And we rolled out the rocket one evening, and we hot fired the rocket the next evening. That took us several attempts the first time we did this. And this time, boom, within 24 hours, we had our integrated hot fire test complete, which is what led us here. And then basically a week later, we were on the pad ready to launch because we had a couple of learnings that came out of that integrated hot fire, but we're ready to go.
Right back at it.
It wasn't a ton of things. And so that is just one way in which we're showing the improvement in our operations of this rocket. And if we keep up on that trajectory, so
Think about what that leads to.
That is what's going to lead to the launch, land, repeat. And that's why today is so important for everybody at home. We're objective number one, putting this rocket into space to put our customer, our NASA ESCAPADE mission into space. Objective number two is to get that first stage, the booster, to land on the ship downrange, because we need to learn from the landed booster to be able to do the refurbishment, because this rocket is reusable, because we're going to bring down the cost of access to space through that reusability. But
Exactly.
Look at that.
But just taking a moment to sit with the rocket, let's actually toss it back over to the rocket on the pad. Again, you are watching the webcast of NG2.
I'm getting chills.
Yeah, another thing that I need to point out as far as this flight is concerned, in terms of its level of importance, Right now, at least if things hold up the way they're supposed to at the moment, there's an open bid now going out for a possible replacement, temporary replacement, whatever, for a lunar starship for the HLS, Human Landing System, to put humans on the moon in the next few years. Because Starship is behind schedule, or at least that's what the current administrator, temporary administrator Duffy says. So that being the case, New Glenn, what Blue Origin wants to do here is demonstrate that New Glenn is capable of taking a heavy payload out to the moon now, to an interplanetary destination now. That's what they would like to demonstrate to NASA. If they are successful, then they will be able to legitimately argue that, hey, our lander may not be ready yet, but our means of propelling that lander to the moon is ready, whereas Starship isn't ready yet. It's going to require a lot of refueling missions and a mature refueling architecture before Starship can get the lunar Starship lander out to the moon. So if we can pull this off today, that will be an impressive demonstration and a strong case that they will make for themselves in terms of we're the guys who are going to be able to put 2 astronauts, because that's all Artemis 3 calls for, is 2 astronauts on the surface of the moon before China does. That's gonna be the statement that they would want to make here. If it fails, if this rocket goes off course, blows up, goes astray, whatever, then Blue Origin has just made a strong statement that they're not ready at all to get this job done, not both in regards to a lunar lander and a means of transporting it out to the moon. So there's actually a lot at stake with today's flight, a lot at stake. Thank you so much, Carpet Fire, for the $5 Canadian. Really, really appreciate it. Once again, you are in the running for a 3i Atlas t-shirt. One random super chat supporter will get a free 3i Atlas t-shirt. So make sure that you stay tuned to the end of the broadcast to see if you can win out. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and bring Blue Origin back.
Heavenly like looking, especially with the clouds. I know that we're in a weather hold right now, but it looks really nice. It's beautiful.
She's just chilling, that rocket.
She's being
just
illuminated. She's chilling. The rocket's chilling. I'm chilling. Ariane's chilling. But you at home, don't chill. Come with me. We want to take you through something really cool, okay? While we're in this hold, let's talk about Viasat's HaloNet network. Now, the commercial communication system supporting
Thanks so
NASA's
much.
shift to next-generation
Gatanj, I
space
guess?
relay
I don't know.
services
In any
is
event,
actually
thank
part
you
of
so much
today's
for
mission
your
as well.
support.
That's right.
Really
So the
appreciate it.
same technology featured here is being demonstrated on today's New Glenn flight to relay launch telemetry in real time.
Okay, so we have more music. A statement was made, you can't compare Starship and New Glenn. I actually agree with that. Starship is going to be capable of hauling 100 metric tons of either cargo or lots and lots of people out to the moon or to Mars, etc. in the future. Its capabilities are enormous, but what really is at stake right now is the practical capability of delivering 2 astronauts to the surface of the moon. That's the race that's involved at the moment, because the United States has stated very strongly that they intend to beat China to the moon. Right now, China has demonstrated that they will almost definitely make it to the moon by 2030, given progress that they've already made. So right now, NASA is looking for multiple alternatives. And again, today, Origin is going to try to make the statement that they have a rocket that's capable of tossing interplanetary payloads, and the moon counts as an interplanetary destination. Uh, so, that being the case, we'll see if they're able to pull this off today. And if they do a really fine job, then that will be a big step forward. But in terms of the long run, are they capable of replacing Starship in the long run? No way. There's no rocket that can haul assuming Starship actually does what it's designed to do. There's nothing that can haul 100 metric tons to interplanetary destinations. Only Starship can do that. The question is, will it be ready in time? That's the big question right now. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Ween Baby. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tuxedo, thank you so much. A large silent black triangle over Austin, Texas. Man, I tell you, that's an experience I wish I had. Definitely an experience I wish I had. Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate it. SpaceX replacing refueling with the Hydrolox third stage. I think that's a good idea. I'll talk about that later. Right now, we're going to bring Blue Origin back.
But I just want to talk about this because we talk about landing the rocket today. That is huge. But getting our customers to where they need to go is really, really important. So we're going to deploy those 2 satellites at about T plus 33 minutes. But then the second stage is going to continue in space, right? The 2 satellites go on their way. And that is when we're going to turn on the Viasat payload as well. So the Viasat payload is not going to deploy. It's going to stay on the rocket. And they're going to test their technology. And it's so, we feel so honored that we've got organizations like NASA.
Right.
We've got organizations like Viasat, one of the foremost satellite operators in the world, that are entrusting Blue Origin with their technology. And, yes, this is the second launch of our rocket, but we have shown that through the way that we do our engineering and our development and our testing program, that they said, okay, let's take a chance with you guys. And that means a lot to us. That is not lost on us. And so I want to thank, our customers,
partners.
all of our partners and customers that have flown with us and are going to fly with us. It really does mean a lot. It's not lost on us what our mission is.
Not at all. Little rideshare payload. The Viasat CPS
Thanks so much,
technical
Grace. Wow.
demonstration
Grace
is what we will be seeing. And you
hitting
right
it
there
hard
are
with
seeing a
the
live
super
look
chest
from
tonight. I'm so
Jacqueline.
grateful.
And
Really
Ariane,
appreciate that, Grace.
it would look so much better, as you said.
Gosh.
It's missing something.
It's missing. There's something
There's something
off
that
on
could
this
go
image.
right in the middle that would look real good.
Can I tell? A lot of people don't know this. That landing pad is the same size as the landing pad for New Shepard.
It is.
Which
That's right.
the rocket is 5 times taller. Just think you scale something out 5 times, and we're going to land. To be fair, that's all stacked together. But it's still 7 meters in diameter, and the first stage is massive in its own right. It's still like landing a building, but it's on the same circumference as New Shepard.
It is a moment that I know we're all kind of on this edge of our seats waiting for. I certainly am. We've been building up to this moment for months, and then technically for years, if we look at how much time it has taken from the start of this company. 25 years ago, we just had our 25th anniversary, and something really interesting, Ariane, 10 years to the month and almost to the day is when we landed the New Shepard booster.
Yes, it was. And I don't want to be misquoted. I think it was November 15th. It'd be off by a day or two.
That's all right. No one's holding you to it.
But it was of 2015.
Yeah.
When we landed New Shepard for the first time, and that was the first time any organization had ever landed a booster that had gone to space before. And I had the honor of being down there. The organization looked a little bit, Blue Origin looked a little different than it does today. We had a couple hundred employees. We're now over 10,000 employees.
Yeah.
We basically had, we had Kent and we had West Texas, and that's it. And there was a group of, I don't know, maybe like 15 of us, a dozen of us on this back porch. Of course, there was mission control, And it was the second time we had attempted this, similar to, right, there are a lot of parallels.
To answer the
Similar to New
question,
Glenn,
for
we
each
had
super
a
chat,
beautiful
you'll get one
first launch,
entry.
but
So yeah, the folks who've been doing a
if
lot of
we're an
super
expendable
chats,
rocket,
they'll
it'd been
get
a perfect
several
first
shots
launch.
at this.
We didn't land the booster the way we wanted
Only
to.
fair.
And on the second launch, we launched it and it came back, and Tabitha got, this is like ingrained, like just burnt in my memory, is this rocket came down and we heard on this handheld radio, you know, the engines, like drag brakes deploy, engine relay, and people are just like losing it.
Holding their breath.
Holding their breath. And you see in the distance, because for New Shepard, you're a couple miles away, and it kicked up all this dust, and then we heard touchdown. And there you go. See, you see our happy engineers? It was like that. We just lost our minds. And I am sure that today, when this rocket comes down and does the same thing, it will be like that, but also as we have scaled up, everything gets scaled up, all the energy, it will be over 10,000 employees losing their mind. Is that man wearing a kilt?
There's no judgment here. This is awesome.
I love
more
it.
kilts.
I love it. Hashtag more kilts.
But one thing is, you know, we have built this company for a lot of things, and another big piece of it is customer focus.
Yes.
I got the chance to talk to Dave Limp about this yesterday. It's such an important part of everything we do, and it really ties into something else that we have, and that is our Mars Telecommunications Orbiter, or MTO. And let's kind of dive into this for a little bit. So current communications spacecraft at Mars, they're aging, and we need to make sure that we have new and robust capabilities out there that can kind of support not just our existing rovers and instruments doing groundbreaking work on the Martian surface, but also to lay the groundwork for more science and even more human missions. Well, the first human mission and all those beyond that.
Exactly. And our Mars Telecommunications Orbiter is based on existing blue ring vehicle, and it provides high rate communications, but also does much more in a single spacecraft.
Yeah, in addition to communications, our Blue Ring MTO could also fly exciting science payloads and technology demonstrations. For example, flying a synthetic aperture radar on Blue Ring MTO will help us find the ice on Mars, which will inform future landing sites for human missions. So take a look at our Mars telecommunications.
All right, so we are back once again to copyrighted music. Let's see here. I think we had a couple other questions that we wanted to make sure that we covered. I'm sorry, I think I got. Oh yeah, a question was asked about what do I think about the third stage of the third stage plan, hydrolock third stage for Starship. I think that's a great idea. I think that's something that SpaceX should have been working on for a long time. The idea is to put a smaller scale lunar lander, much smaller than the lunar Starship, maybe 10 tons, something along those lines, and the rest of it is engines and propellant. And that being the case, you might be able to bypass the entire refueling part of the mission. So yeah, that could really change things for SpaceX. Problem is, of course, is you're having to design that third stage spacecraft from scratch. To my knowledge, SpaceX hasn't been working on anything like that at all. It'll be very difficult to develop something like that really, really quickly. This communications satellite, by the way, is very interesting that Blue Origin is talking about for Mars. Extremely important for a future presence on the red planet, definitely. There is another question in regards to can New Glenn get the Blue Moon lander all the way to the moon without refueling? No, it can't. Not the Blue Moon Mark II. Can, however, get Blue Moon Mark I, and it is understood right now that Blue Origin's current plan is to use a scaled, or rather a modified Blue Moon Mark I lander that was supposed to be used for cargo only for this first mission only, the Artemis 3 mission, to land astronauts, just 2 astronauts on the moon. That was sort of the plan that they're talking about for Artemis 3 and Blue Origin, maybe taking care of it. If they can do that, no refueling will be required. Um, and also keep in mind the Blue Moon Mark 1 is actually bigger than the Apollo LEM, substantially bigger. So if you can put a life support system inside that thing, it could work. You can make it happen. Also, the daytime launches question that we have here, the FAA is looking to six-day commercial launches during the day because the FAA says that they are currently overwhelmed. They are incapable of clearing flights out of the launch path effectively because of the government shutdown, and they would like all commercial launches to be taking place at night when there aren't as many planes flying around, which is just another consequence of this damn shutdown, another reason why the government needs to find a way to end it. Tuxedo, thank you so much. Really appreciate your support. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you so much for your support and for your kind words. Let's go ahead and bring Blue Origin back. All right, we got a weather problem, it looks like. So it looks like we're gonna have another hold with the launch. The weather was only about 65% optimal for this launch, so could be running into some problems here. We'll see, we'll see, but we could have another weather hold as a result of what's going on. But currently, they're still counting. Oh, another, since we have the music going again, another thing that was pointed out, for those of you who've been watching the, uh, the images of the ESCAPADE spacecraft, the Blue Origin fairing is monstrous, 7 meters in diameter, huge volume fairing, and as you can see, for those of you who've been watching those images, utterly dwarfs the spacecraft, inside it. This thing could probably carry 10 ESCAPADE spacecraft quite easily. It almost seems overkill to have, a monster rocket like New Glenn carry this payload. But at the same time, I do believe the Blue Origin is offering a extremely discounted price on this for this launch because they had to do a second test launch anyway. So in any event, whatever works, I guess. But yeah, you could definitely launch a lot more payload besides what they're launching today to Mars, given what they have available. But on the reverse side, Vulcan Centaur, which is kind of on the same level as New Glenn in many ways. It has a smaller fairing, a little over 5 meters in diameter. However, it can carry a lot of the same payloads that New Glenn does, and it can carry a heavier payload further. And the reason for that is New Glenn is a monstrous rocket, and so therefore pretty heavy. And the propulsion systems for both New Glenn and Vulcan Centaur are not that different. If you include all of the solid rocket boosters that Vulcan Centaur can pile on, their propulsion is actually very similar to what New Glenn is capable of. And also keep in mind that New Glenn and Vulcan Centaur use the same liquid fueled engines. They both use the BE4 engine, which is very interesting. Although New Glenn has 7 of them and Vulcan Centaur only has 2. All right, let's bring Blue Origin back. We're officially at 20 minutes to lift off.
Let's check it out.
Okay, so walk me through kind of the different components of this rocket.
Okay, so on the most very basic level, we've got GS1, and then stacked on top of it, GS2. It's basically like stacking a rocket on top of a rocket, right? So let's maybe start with the GS1 because it's doing a lot of the work
so much,
right?
Matt.
And we want to
Really
land this
appreciate
booster
it.
as well.
Thank you so much
At the
for the
top, we call
fiber.
the forward section. You'll see kind of a gold section up there at the top where the 4 fins are.
Right.
Those fins, they move back and forth, right? So they help with directional capability on the rocket. The whole main section of it, though, in the middle is basically a big fuel tank. And then you get to the aft, the bottom section there, that has the landing gear you see in each of the doors, but it also has the 7 BE4 engines that are in the base.
Right.
At the top, then, So that's basically GS1. At the top, basically from the white portion above the gold and beyond, tucked in there are the two BE3U engines. The part with the feather, again, that's all basically tank, liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen for the propellants. I forgot to mention.
We've got to hold.
Liquid oxygen and liquefied natural gas, the propellants for the first stage, so they're different propellants. And then kind of that nice, smooth top, that is the fairing. There are two halves of the fairing, and
We'll
those
see what
will
happens now.
deploy off. Those will fall apart once the second stage is up in space.
Right.
And inside the fairing is where the ESCAPADE, the two payloads, the two satellites of the ESCAPADE mission are currently.
Our twins.
They're twins. They're on what's called an ESPA ring. And so it's a ring that mates to the top of the rocket. And then on that ESPA ring, we put the two satellites. So once they're up there in orbit at about 33 minutes, first the blue will deploy. We wait 30 seconds. Pretty obvious. We don't want them to run into each other, right? And then second, the gold deploys. So that's what happens with the second stage once it's off of space. But keep in mind, first stage,
making its way home.
It's making its way home, right? So the engines have done half of the work on its way up. We flip it around. We start a burn that slows the rocket. Right. We then use the strakes, or they're basically our wings at the base of the rocket. It helps with what we call cross range. So we basically can effectively fly the rocket, and then it lands on the Jacqueline platform just in the last couple minutes or less even. We have 3 of the 7 engines that relight, and then finally just the final engine that lights. You don't need all of the power, all the engines, because you're landing what is effectively an empty fuel tank.
And something the size of a skyscraper.
Something that's the size of a skyscraper. So you do need power, obviously, but not as much, obviously, as when it starts. And then it should come for a nice soft landing on the Jacqueline. And if we do that,
it'll be pretty epic.
It'll be history. It'll be epic, and it opens a new chapter for Blue Origin.
So appropriately named. Never tell me the odds.
Don't tell me those odds.
And Ariane, it was really, I don't know, almost like an out-of-body experience to be standing next to New Glenn. I have been to New Shepard launches. This is my first New Glenn launch. And to see New Glenn upright, and to be in the presence of something the size of a skyscraper, and to learn, as you mentioned, it's essentially a rocket stacked on top of a rocket, right? And the pad itself has so much history. It's just like, I don't know, Space Coast is such a special place. This launch is so special. This rocket is so special. So
yeah, I had a chance to chat with some of our customers and our VIPs that also got a chance to check out the rocket. A lot of them, of course, have been in the industry a long time, and they got out there for a photo op yesterday, and they said, "This rocket just looks beautiful."
Yeah.
And there is something to be said, actually, for you can look at a piece of engineering. I know it's very simplistic, but you can look at a piece of engineering and be like, aha, that looks right. That looks right. It feels right. You add too many bells and whistles and you're like, it's not. This rocket is a marvel of engineering. It flew so well on its first go. I cannot wait to see how it performs on its second go. And as we said, we're cautiously optimistic. We've made some changes to the first stage after our first launch, where we didn't recover the booster to be able to land this time. And we feel good. We feel good. I don't want to jinx anything, but man, I feel
We're
good.
knocking. I knock on my
knocking all over the place. Yeah.
But you're right. I've been talking to employees, for months leading up to this moment, and employees do feel good. Engineers feel good, and this launch, it feels different. It feels good. And I think everyone is just, on the edge of their seat at this precipice, right? We're ready to land the booster.
It would feel a lot better if these clouds got out of the way, if this weather got out of the way.
We are in a weather hold. So here's what's going on. If you are tuning in right now, you're watching the webcast for NG2. You might notice on your screen that we are in a hold. We're doing that to allow for a little more time for that weather to clear. We're gonna let you know and keep you guys posted on the new T-clock as soon as we get information on that. So right now, let's toss it back over to New Glenn on the pad as we wait for some of this weather to just kind of move on out.
Roll on by.
Just get out of here.
All right. So once again, now that we're back to the music. A question was asked about the budget. The budget for this mission is incredibly cheap for an interplanetary mission, $78.5 million. Back in the day, the rocket alone would have cost $200 million just to get the mission out to Mars. So this is very, very affordable, comparatively speaking. Obviously, Blue Origin is giving a very cut rate cost here. I would say the normal launch cost for New Glenn would be higher. And then, of course, keep in mind, we have 2 spacecraft that were custom built by Rocket Lab. So this is the total expense, including the cost of the spacecraft. So it's kind of Um, mind-boggling how inexpensive this mission actually is. Interplanetary missions have never been this cheap in the past, and again, that's all because of competition, and mostly it's competition that was started by SpaceX. SpaceX definitely opened up the field. It used to be dominated by the good old boys of spaceflight, and now SpaceX has changed that dramatically. So everybody that wants to get into this game and wants to have an opportunity to compete, they absolutely need to cut their prices down substantially. And yeah, I can understand where these ladies are coming from. I've never seen New Glenn in person. It's similar in size to Saturn V. It's not a whole lot different in terms of size. It's obviously not as big as far as diameter is concerned as Saturn V, 7 meters as opposed to close to 9. But nevertheless, um, it's all it's a monstrous, monstrous rocket. So that being the case, yeah, I would be impressed if I saw it as well. It's taller than just about every rocket out there, with the exception of the SLS and, of course, Starship, which is an absolute monster. And now China is designing some rockets that are definitely going to be comparing to this one in terms of size and SLS and all that. They've got some, like the Long March 10, for example, is quite a monstrous rocket. In terms of a human-rated spacecraft, the only human-rated spacecraft that New Glenn has at the moment associated with it, it officially right now, is the Blue Moon Mark II, which is designed to land crew on the moon. Now, does Blue Origin have an ambition to make this the only spacecraft that handles the entire flight, launch it on New Glenn, fly it, say, to the Lunar Gateway space station, and take astronauts down to the surface of the moon, then back to the space station and bring it back to Earth? Maybe, but then it would require a very good heat shield in order to bring anything back. That is a problem just about everybody faces, and it is a daunting problem indeed. It's the only spacecraft that's currently in service that has a heat shield that can handle the speeds involved with a lunar mission is the Orion spacecraft from Lockheed Martin. That's the only one right now that's currently in service that's capable of doing it. The heat shield that Starship has not been tested at those kinds of speeds and heat yet, and I have a feeling probably couldn't take it. It's gonna take a much more resilient heat shield than what Starship currently uses for orbital flights, to handle a moon mission flight. Alright, let's bring, Blue Origin back.
It's so important, the A component of STEAM. But as part of the Club for the Future program, one of the cool opportunities that we give is we allow students to send postcards to space and back via New Shepard, and we also provide online STEAM-based lesson plans that are free for students and teachers to use. And then so that everybody can get a piece of the action.
That's right.
Even easier is that we have these digital postcard this drawing tool that you can go online, and anybody can send that art to space. So for more information, if that sounds cool to you, just go to clubforfuture.org.
That's right. That's clubforfuture.org. Ariane, where do you fall in the STEAM spectrum? You're a bit of everything, I feel like.
I've always kind of been like...
You're like, I'm science and technology and a bit of engineering and math.
Yeah, but I kind of like it all.
Yeah. And arts today and anytime we get the honor of having you with us.
Let's be very clear. I'm not the one that's going to be designing that insane trajectory that Advanced Space did for ESCAPADE today.
Right.
So, like, props to you guys. But I love every part of space and all that goes into it, and clearly the A part of it is also incredibly important.
It's neat to have such a cool team of all of the great letters that work together. And Jeff himself has said that it is this generation's job to build a road to space so that future generations can unleash their creativity. Check it out.
Okay, so once again, we got the copyright music back. There was a question asked about the Chinese. Near as we can tell, yes, they are still trapped, so to speak. Now, to be clear as to what trapped actually means, it means that there's a spacecraft currently docked with the Chinese space station, with the Tiangong, that is intended to bring the astronauts back. That spacecraft has been damaged. So what at least we think it has, by space debris. So the crew that was on the station was supposed to use that spacecraft. They're going to use the new one that just delivered the new crew. However, when they take that new space back to Earth, that means there will be no serviceable spacecraft for the other astronauts, meaning that China will need to send up a reserve spacecraft to go get those guys. That's the plan anyway. However, the problem is, of course, once the first crew goes down, leaving the other crew on board without a spacecraft, if anything else happens, if the space station, for example, suffers a decompression event from another piece of space debris striking it, something serious, or a life support system malfunction or something, then these astronauts, these taikonauts, are probably trapped. They're probably screwed because they don't have a serviceable spacecraft to bring them back. Chances are they would try it anyway. They would use their damaged spacecraft and hope for the best, but it'd be very slim chance of them returning safely. Now, of course, the odds are, do they, are the odds, large that there is going to be an emergency of some kind while there's no spacecraft available for an evacuation? Almost certainly not. The odds are very much against anything like that going wrong. Tiangong hasn't had an event like that happen before. It has had a piece of space debris strike its solar panels in 2023, which required that the station run off of a reduced power configuration until they could repair that damage. But nevertheless, yeah, it's very, very unlikely that there's going to be an emergency situation that puts these guys in a position where there's no way out for them. Chances are China will be able to dispatch their backup spacecraft up to Tiangong in time to take care of these guys. So they're probably going to be okay. But again, when you're talking about the CNSA, Chinese National Space Agency, military organization, they're a lot more guarded with their secrets and with their information. So if there is anything seriously wrong, chances are we're not going to hear about it. Okay, well, we have some very enthusiastic Blue Origin people, but you know what? We see that from SpaceX people as well, but there's still a hold, which has got to be frustrating. So let's go ahead and bring back we'll bring back the Blue Origin. See what
On that
they
weather
say.
hold the lift. Everyone's excited, but the time is coming.
Where our team is they're still working on the situation with the weather and assessing the weather conditions out there. But otherwise speaking, the team and the rocket are ready to go. Looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Looks beautiful.
And I think what you were saying is, employees are so excited, and they're also very involved in community and they're involved in schools, and Club for the Future gives us that opportunity.
Yeah, and it's not an accident in the sense that, our our vision is millions of people living and working in space for the benefit of Earth.
That's right.
Right?
For all of Earth.
For all of Earth. And we need to, 3 steps to that. We got to reduce the cost of accessing space.
Number 1.
We need to figure out then how to go to space and take advantage of the resources that are out there to make life on Earth better.
Yes, Mike, it
And
does
the
have to be
third key
autonomous.
part of that is
That's
inspiring
my
the next
understanding.
generation, because this is not a project that is done in 6 months. This is not
No.
building an app, right? Like this is
Forever.
decadal, generational
Yeah.
type of work. And if we don't have a strong next generation to pass the baton to, that is super excited and is trained and is motivated to do so,
Yeah.
then what are we doing?
Knowledge
right?
is power.
It fades if you don't pass that baton on. And so that's why at Blue we've made it a core part of what we do. And what I don't use like the big, we Blue Origin, but literally as individuals, there are so many of us that we call club ambassadors that go
I'm
to,
one of them.
Yeah, I'm
You're
also
one of them.
Go and speak about space on behalf of Blue, but arguably on behalf of the industry, because that is such a critical component of what we do. So
Yeah.
props to the actual group within Blue Origin, our Club for the Future
Yeah,
team. that
Heather
works.
and Lucas and Kristen, they love to reach out, and we love to help them out anytime. Recently, I even had the opportunity to speak to a group of students in India.
Oh, I love
and
it.
I had just gone to India last year, and the fact I was able then to turn around and talk to them and relate not only my travels to India to what we're doing in the space industry here and what we're doing at Blue, I mean, it really brings a tear to my eye because it's so cool to be able to make those connections. So you could tell we love Club for the Future. We love inspiring the next generation, and we love inspiring you too at home. But if you're just joining us, this is the webcast for NG2. We've got a live look on the right side of your screen of Jacqueline. Would look a lot better once that booster goes up and we maybe set it down right where that feather is.
Right
That
where that
looks like a
feather is.
good spot right there.
Yep.
And then, of course, on the left-hand side, you have New Glenn on the pad ready to go. But let's talk about the flight profile overall. While we're in this hold, we're in a weather hold right now, we made a really cool video that dives a little bit deeper on the entire flight profile of New Glenn. So check it out.
All right. So we once again have copyrighted music. So to give it an idea, the Glenn flight is very similar in many ways to what we see with Falcon 9 or with a Falcon Heavy. A lot of the same configurations, and the idea is to land the booster on a barge. We don't have any missions planned, at least not as far as we know, that brings the booster all the way back to the Cape. No landing facilities at the Cape for the New Glenn booster. It lands exclusively out in the ocean, which, of course, a downrange landing spot is better in many ways because it allows the booster to fly longer, burn longer before it separates. And then you have a reentry burn executed by the booster, which brings it back into the atmosphere. Actually, it never really completely leaves the atmosphere, and then heads back towards the barge for a landing. Again, very similar to the way SpaceX does these things. The difference is, of course, this is a much bigger booster than SpaceX has ever tried to land on a barge. Sure, SpaceX has landed the big super heavy back at the original launch facility with the chopsticks, but they've never ever tried to land a huge booster like this on a barge. So this is sort of a unique approach, and yet should be very interesting. In the upper stage of New Glenn, all that is going to go very similar to a traditional flight. With the Escapade flight, it's going to deploy the two spacecraft, and the spacecraft will make their way to Lagrange Point 2, which is a solar system parking lot where the Earth and the sun's gravity balance one another out. They are going to loiter, these spacecraft are going to loiter at this Lagrange point for a full year, waiting for Mars' orbit to bring it around to where it's closer, to where it's in a more convenient location for Escapade to rendezvous. This has never been done before. Usually these launches take place during a launch window when Earth and Mars are more favorably at a more favorable distance. But again, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, that wasn't possible because things weren't ready. The New Glenn, rather, wasn't ready. Rocket Lab was ready with their Escapade spacecraft. They rushed them actually to deliver them to the Cape on time, and then New Glenn wasn't ready to go, which I know is very disappointing to Rocket Lab, given that they had to move heaven and earth to make all that possible. So now we have this unique flight configuration whereby we will be delivering these Escapade spacecraft out to this Lagrange point where they will loiter for a year until Mars is in position and then get back into spot. Once again, the L2, to explain L2, Lagrange, or also known as Lagrange Point 2, is a place where the sun and the Earth's gravity cancel one another out. It's a very good location to put spacecraft or space stations, whatever, that want to stay put, that want to wait around for something, either in an orbit or in the case, say, of the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST. It sits at a Lagrange point as well. So it remains there, and it doesn't have to use a lot of fuel, a lot of maneuvering thrusters in order to maintain its position, because that balanced gravity allows it to stay put. So yeah, it's an interesting launch configuration, interesting mission profile. Once again, we've never done anything like this before. Nobody has. So we'll see what ends up happening. Could be interesting. Could be interesting. So any other questions? I'm happy to address them. Like I say, in some cases, I may even be able to answer some questions that Blue Origin isn't going to talk about. So, in any event, let's see, what else do we want? Producer, are we having audio issues? Yeah, I know we continue to have these. I had my laptop break down in Australia. I had to get laptop replacement in Australia, and it doesn't seem to do a job from these live streams. So I'm going to have to get another improvement in equipment. So once again, when you guys are throwing me super chats and that sort of thing, this is what I spend my money on, guys. Improvements to equipment, or traveling to remote destinations to bring you unique content. And by the way, believe it or not, I still have some unique content to bring you when it comes to Australia. We'll have my visit to a radio telescope out at 2 different radio telescopes actually in Australia that I visited in person. Learned a lot while I was out there. The reason I haven't released something, one of them has to do with some alien related content. 3i Atlas just grabbing up all of the slots that I have reserved for alien related stuff, because there's always something new that that damn object is doing. And by the way, I have a new video coming out soon, and the title of this video, just to give you guys a heads up, a little preview, it's entitled, "I Think I Know Where 3i Atlas is Going." I did some research and suddenly discovered something about 3i Atlas's trajectory that made my jaw hit the table, and I am looking forward to bringing you that information here soon. Meantime, let's bring back Blue Origin.
Boats.
There are some boats that are essentially being told, hey, you're in our flight path, you gotta get out of here. They should have known that to begin with, but that's just one of the other things that you deal with when you deal with rocket launches.
Tabitha, I'm gonna try to see the silver lining in this, or I'm gonna try to be the ever optimist that I am. Last time we had this launch, we also had an errant boat in our in our flight path. And we had a pretty spectacular launch, and we put our payload, got to orbit, we filled our objective. So I'm going to call this a good luck omen.
A good luck. You know, speaking of good luck omens, yesterday, me, you, and our very own Eddie Safert, we were headed out to the launch pad and we saw a tortoise crossing the road. And if you didn't know, tortoises are a part of our coat of arms and we find them as a sign of good luck. So Eddie, you are out there, you are with employees, you're at the best spot to see the rocket launch. But let's talk about something serious for a second. Let's talk about how hard it is to land the booster. For those of you who don't know, you probably do know if you're watching this webcast, on our first attempt, we weren't able to land the booster, but we were able to get our payload into orbit. Today, our big objective, aside from getting our payload into orbit, which is ESCAPADE, is we want to land our booster. No, never tell me the odds, and I like the name of that booster, so I want to keep it. So, Eddie, how hard is that?
Well, so first off, thank you for your patience. The weather here is looking a little better. The boats, as Ariane said last time, definitely safety is our highest priority. And the tortoise, for me, a sign of good luck. I mean, I think it's just a trifecta of signs that we're ready to not just launch ESCAPADE to space successfully, but to land this booster. So we learned a lot. Nothing substitutes flight data. So the GS1 booster, after it separates from the GS2 upper stage, it does a 180-degree flip maneuver so that the aft section is facing backwards, or basically back down to Earth, but in the flight path. And so that 180-degree maneuver is conducted by our reaction control system. They're peroxide monothrusters. We call them the severe weather agility thrusters. And those worked perfectly last time. We did the maneuver. And then the BE4 engine goes for reignition. So the 3 center engines reignite what we call the exo-atmospheric re-entry burn. And its entire purpose is to slow down the GS1 as it re-enters the atmosphere so that its superior aerodynamic performance, those long strakes, those forward fins, can guide the GS1 booster over the Jacqueline.
Yeah, Eddie, thank you for such a good explanation for our viewers at home, because it took a little bit for me to understand, too, exactly. I'm like, why is it so difficult? And it's like, Tabitha, it's pretty difficult. And I'm like, yeah, it's like when you watch the Olympics and you watch someone run fast, you're like, oh, I can do that. It's like, no, you can't. It's actually quite difficult. So, thank you, Eddie, for that great explanation. Again, we are currently in a hold. You are watching NG2, our webcast here. We are at about L-20 minutes. We're going to toss it right back over to the rocket. New Glenn is on the pad. It is feeling cool. It is looking cool. And it is literally, Ariane, very cool right now.
Okay, I think these ladies are running out of things to talk about. I don't think they were planning on having this many delays. So yeah, I would say that their coverage may start getting a bit repetitive. We'll see how things go. Um, but in any event, will SpaceX get approval of using nuclear engines to? No, not for Artemis 3. There's no way that they're going to be able to get nuclear engines operational and serviceable for a spacecraft that soon. We're talking a long time between now and then. Nuclear requires a lot of testing, and a lot of testing under conditions that are difficult to create because you're trying to keep radiation from spreading. And obviously, the best place to do that is in space, but you're not going to send a nuclear engine into space until you're certain that it's working properly. So you have to test it on the ground, and there are precious few places on Earth that you can test a nuclear engine without creating a lot of nuclear waste product. We used to do this. We were definitely doing a lot of ground tests of nuclear engines in the 60s and 70s, and made enormous progress on those engines. But the techniques that were used in those days to test nuclear engines would never be approved today. There's too much radiation involved in the testing process. Although I have to admit, it's a bit frustrating that we were testing nuclear weapons. We, being the United States, were testing nuclear weapons as recently as the early 1990s, which produced a lot more radiation than testing a nuclear engine ever would. So it does seem to be a little hypocritical to be putting such restrictions on nuclear engines when nuclear weapons are tested so freely for such a long period of time. Now, fusion, that's a little bit different. And there are a number of ways nuclear fusion propulsion, and there's a company called Pulsar Fusion here in Milton Keynes, where I live, that's working on that right now. And the idea is to not actually have a sustained positive energy fusion reaction, which is difficult to do, difficult to sustain. The idea instead is to create high energy ionized plasma using the fusion process to do that. And you use the high energy plasma as your propellant because of course, it is energized with a lot of heat, and in addition to that, it's ionized, meaning that if you can control it in an electromagnetic field, which is the plan, you can direct those ions out the back of your rocket, traveling much faster than conventional rockets, 10 times as meaning that you're generating 10 times as much thrust with the same amount of fuel. So if that kind of propulsion system can be mastered, can be tested successfully in space, it will revolutionize space. It will allow us to reach Mars, say, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks instead of 6 months. It totally changes everything. It will make it a lot more practical, for human-rated missions going to the red planet and back, and not just to Mars. We're talking missions to the moons of Jupiter, moons of Saturn, that sort of thing. All of that becomes a lot more feasible if you have those kinds of propulsion systems. And also, the that there are similar engines being tested all over the world. Russians are working on one. The United States is working on one. It's called plasma engines, creating high energy ionized plasma, which by its very nature travels very quickly. If you can control it and direct it, and the way to control it and direct it is with a powerful electromagnetic field. You trap it with that magnetic field and then direct it out the nozzle of your rocket, and it generates an enormous amount of thrust with a small amount of fuel expended. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting next generation propulsion systems that are being worked on right now, in addition to traditional nuclear engines. And so uh, let's go ahead and bring Blue Origin back and
But an
see if they're
important
ever
part of
going to
what's
get
happening
out of this
today with
damn
New Glenn is
hold.
we are sending ESCAPADE to Mars. And I got the extreme privilege, the honor, if you will, to talk to the principal investigator of ESCAPADE, Dr. Rob Lillis. Check it out. Rob, for someone who doesn't know, what does the
Okay,
principal
we're gonna have
investigator
more
of ESCAPADE do?
The principal
copyrighted
investigator is
music, I think.
entrusted by
Let's see.
NASA to execute the entire project. So it's kind of
No,
like
there may not be music
stops with
here.
me.
Let's go ahead
I
and
have
bring
a
them
team of
on.
excellent people around me, but I'm responsible for the production of the data, the definition of the science requirements, the execution, the technical aspect of the mission. I think it's a great model for how NASA sort of entrusts the completion, the execution of a mission to a partner like UC Berkeley, where I'm based.
And ESCAPADE is a really special project. We are so excited to be taking it up today on NG2. Tell me a little bit about what ESCAPADE does.
So ESCAPADE is a twin spacecraft mission going to Mars, orbiting Mars to sample the ways in which Mars and its upper atmosphere respond to changes in space weather. By space weather, I mean the million-mile-per-hour stream of charged particles that the sun is at all times throwing out. Sometimes that stream gets gusty, and the gustiness, essentially, of it is what we call space weather. And there's all sorts of ways that can happen. The magnetic field can get stronger, the speed can get higher, the density can get higher, and all those things have an effect on the Martian atmosphere. And over time, it can strip away the particles in the upper atmosphere. And we know that this has been an important process by which Mars's climate has changed over Martian history. Early in Mars history, up to about 2 billion years ago, Mars was at least occasionally warm and wet. It had a thick atmosphere. it was habitable. We don't know whether life actually existed, but it was habitable there. But then in the last 2 billion years, it's lost most of its atmosphere. And we think that the stripping of the atmosphere by the solar wind is a big reason why that happened. And ESCAPADE is going to be sampling and investigating these processes with a stereo perspective with 2 spacecraft. And that's really important because up until now, with one single spacecraft, we've only been able to measure either the solar wind itself or the effect of the solar wind closer to the planet. We've either had the cause or the effect, but separately. With ESCAPADE, we can have 2 spacecraft simultaneously cause and effect at the same time. And so that's the breakthrough that ESCAPADE is going to provide us in understanding the processes by which the atmosphere is stripped away.
And once we understand that, I mean, how does that affect us here back on Earth or future Mars missions?
Right. So it's important for a couple of reasons. One, I think we're just curious as to how planets evolve in general. Like over the billions of years, planets, they change their atmospheric composition. They're more volcanically active, and that can affect the atmosphere too. And so this is an important piece, isn't the only piece, of course, but it's an important piece of the puzzle of Mars climate evolution. And that's interesting just because we love to explore as humans. But it's also important because space weather can have a practical effect on robotic spacecraft that we send to Mars future and also humans when they explore Mars. This is important for a couple of different reasons. One, a big space weather event, what's often called an interplanetary shock or a coronal mass ejection, when the sun belches out a couple billion tons of hot plasma, often at high speed, high density. As that shock expands through the solar system, it accelerates particles to really high energies, high enough energies that they can go right through a spacesuit and cause astronaut health problems.
Right.
And so the radiation on the surface of Mars, when you get a big enough coronal mass ejection, you can get 100 days worth of radiation in one day. This happened last year.
Wow.
This happened last year, June 6th, 2024. The usual background level of radiation was increased by a factor of 100 for that day when that happened. And so if you're an astronaut on the surface of Mars, you don't want to be out away from your radiation shelter when that happens. And so ESCAPADE's measurements are going to enable us to better forecast those radiation hazards. There's another reason too why ESCAPADE's important, because we're also going to be studying the ionosphere. So this is a layer of gas in the upper atmosphere that's ionized. And that's important because that layer, it distorts radio signals as they pass through it. And understanding the variability and the structure of that ionosphere will help us to correct for those distortions.
For communication.
Communication, but also for navigation, because there's going to want to be GPS on Mars eventually. And understanding how the ionosphere distorts the GPS signals will enable astronauts to know better where they are. All these things are taken into account on Earth. It's all behind the scenes, so your phone doesn't have to like show you how they're correcting for it, but that's all behind the scenes on Earth. We want to be able to do that same error correction on Mars, and ESCAPADE will help us understand the ionosphere.
It's really cool to know that we're thinking about these future problems now.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that are happening in the future, I mean, ESCAPADE is not going to be making it actually to Mars. The spacecrafts aren't going to be there for at least 2027.
That's right. That's right indeed. Yeah.
So what happens once ESCAPADE deploys? Kind of tell me more about the trajectory.
Okay, well, so after it deploys, first of all, there's a few important checkouts we have to do. The first thing is we got to deploy the solar panels and we got to get it to speak to us. And so actually, the viewers will be interested to know that we may not hear from the spacecraft for up to 3 hours after launch. And that is by design.
Okay.
Because we have 2 antennas, one on either side of the spacecraft, and they only work one at a time. And we don't know which one necessarily is going to be pointed towards Earth initially. So if the one that turns on first happens to be pointed away from Earth, we got to wait 2 hours until it decides, oh, I'm not hearing from Earth, and it switches over to the other one. So no one should panic if we don't hear from it within that first hour. But once we know that we have signal, we're hearing from it, and we know the solar panels are deployed and they're facing the sun, so that's called power positive. So it's a safe and a stable mode. Then we can relax, and then we can start focusing on the longer term aspects of the mission. And you mentioned trajectory. So yes, we are taking quite an unusual path to Mars. We are going to spend about a year in a very large Earth orbit, fairly gravitationally bound to the Earth. We're calling this the loitering phase. It's in the shape of a kidney bean. It kind of goes like this. And next November 2026, we're going to come back to Earth after going more than 2 million miles away. We're going to come back to only 600 kilometers above the surface. We're going to use Earth's gravity and burn our engines at that point, taking advantage of Earth's gravity to slingshot ourselves toward Mars. Because early November next year is when the interplanetary window opens for a transit from Earth to Mars. So all Mars missions before us have had to wait until this narrow 3 or 4 week window every 25 months. We're launching halfway between these two windows. So we're just going to kind of hang out in near Earth space until it's time to go to Mars. And this has never been done before. And this is really, really exciting because this actually opens up the possibility in the future. If humans want to actually settle Mars, we're going to have to send hundreds, maybe even thousands of ships to Mars within that 2 or 3 or 4 week window. And there aren't enough launch pads on Earth to reliably do that just within that window. So we could launch them over the course of a whole year, maybe, and we could like sort of queue them up,
Right.
so that they're kind of lined up so they can go, 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 go when that window opens. And so this is hopefully going to pioneer a way to essentially enable interplanetary settlement in the distant future. Who knows?
And once the mission actually starts, how long is the mission going to be going on?
So, so I mentioned November 2026. That's when we start our interplanetary cruise. We spend 10 months in that cruise to Mars, doing little trajectory correction maneuvers all the time, little tiny engine burns to like just, barely tweak our path so that we can intercept Mars in early September 2027. And that's when we got to do another big engine burn to be captured by Mars's gravity. And that's when we will be in Mars orbit. Then we spend another 7-8 months-ish adjusting the orbits.
Wow.
So first of all, lowering the orbits, then adjusting the orbits. And this is important because ESCAPADE is doing another thing that's never been done before, which is the first ever formation flying around another planet other than the Earth or
A lot of firsts on this
the
one.
Moon. It's kind of like pearls on a string. Both spacecraft have to get into the same orbit. And it takes a while to adjust both orbits to make that happen. And also in the middle of that, there's what we call solar conjunction, where the sun gets in the way between Earth and Mars and we can't talk to it for a whole month. So we kind of just have to chill out, go into safe mode and just wait. And so this is the reason why it's going to take us an additional 7 months after we get to Mars before we can start the science mission in spring 2028.
Okay.
And then we have an 11-month science mission. And that's also in...
So this is going to take us all the way into 2029.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's, I think, May 2029 is the nominal end of the science mission. And I mentioned the 2 spacecraft are going to be the pearls on a string. We do that for the first 6 months. And that's important because we want to know how the upper atmosphere of Mars is changing minute to minute. So in the past, with only single orbiter missions, we've had to wait 4 or 5 hours to see how things have changed. And by that point, the planet's turned a quarter rotation, things are different. We don't know how anything changes on short timescales at all on Mars. ESCAPADE is going to pass through the same part of the upper atmosphere twice in a quick succession. So 2 minutes to 30 minutes apart to see how it changes on those short timescales. Once we're done with that, then we raise one orbit, we lower the other orbit, and then the 2 orbits are different and they start precessing. This is a word for the orbital planes moving with respect to each other.
Okay.
And this allows the 2 spacecraft to get much further apart from each other to make those simultaneous cause and effect measurements that I mentioned earlier, to understand the real-time response of the upper atmosphere to the space weather events.
And so with all that, understanding how ESCAPADE works, and knowing that this mission is going into 2029, how do you feel today?
I feel excited. I feel a little anxious, as everyone does on launch day, but I am super, super excited. I'm proud of everyone who worked on ESCAPADE at Blue Origin, at Rocket Lab, at Berkeley, at Embry-Riddle, all of our partners. Advanced Space LLC, they were the ones who did most of the work to design this innovative path to Mars as well. And so I'm just so proud of the whole team. Probably thousands of people have worked on bits of it up to this point. And we're so excited to reach this day, the culmination of so much effort and the beginning of the next chapter.
And the last question I have for you is something I ask everyone, and that is there anything else you want to add or say or mention that I didn't ask about that you think is important to this interview?
So ESCAPADE is a very low-cost mission. ESCAPADE is only about 1/10 of the typical cost of a NASA planetary mission. This is a radical experiment by NASA in seeing whether they can accept slightly higher risk and less oversight in exchange for a much lower cost. And the idea being that overall you get way more science per dollar if you do this. And
We call it bang for your buck.
Bang for your buck, science for your dollar. And it's because we are embracing as I said, a lighter sort of a touch by NASA. We're using more commercial off-the-shelf parts. There are fewer reviews. There are fewer sort of requirements. NASA's kind of letting us run a little more than they would typically.
Okay.
And NASA's oversight is often what drives a lot of cost. That's great, but it does come at a cost. And so this is hopefully a new way of doing at least a fraction of NASA's science portfolio with this higher risk, lower cost approach.
It's very exciting to have you here, to be able to interview you.
This is an exceptional sight. Just watching pieces of other rockets being put together, and knowing that our booster, our upper stage,
It was all built right here.
it was all built right here. The fairings, the
Yeah.
payload adapter, it was all built right here. Yeah.
Well, Rob, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Cheers. Bye bye.
So obviously a great interview and a great opportunity to be able to talk to Dr. Rob Lillis there. If you were just joining us, you are watching the webcast for NG2. If you're looking at your screen, you might notice we have a new L time, which is L minus 28 minutes and about 30 seconds. Now, to keep you guys updated, we know that the weather is now clear. You're like, all right, that's some good news, right? Well, we have also learned that the launch team is looking into an issue with our ground support equipment at the pad. So we wanted to give you an update on that. And of course, we're going to keep monitoring everything happening around NG2.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when you look at a rocket, you're like, oh, the rocket's going to go. There is a lot of engineering that also goes into the ground systems. That's the ground
Absolutely.
system of the pad. That is the ground systems for the telemetry and the communications. We need to be tracking the vehicle. But like out there on the pad, that pad actually is a feat of engineering in its own right. In fact, this Launch Complex 36, we were talking about it earlier in the webcast, it's been used as a launch complex for decades before us. But we
Great history.
Great history, but we basically cleared it out and built it back up again. The amount of power, data, propellants, all these lines that are going up there. You see the two towers, the one on the right will eventually have crew coming off of it. Slightly off the shot to the left, we've got the water tower. There you got a kind of a back out view so you can see a little bit more. There's a lot that goes on out there. We've got this huge, what we call our propellant farm. There's a lot that goes on out there. So we need that to also be working and working properly and in right conditions to keep the rocket ready to go as it ticks down. And then when we will turn, obviously, the show, if you will, over to the rocket. But in the meantime, there's a lot of work happening in the ground system. So if something is out of line, pressure, data, power, that then could translate down the line,
Right.
Down the pipes, literally, to the rocket, we have to check it out. So our team is on it. But, we do have a little bit of time here to do so. But it looks like the weather might be clearing up. You live here in Florida. This is wild. How do you put up with this?
10 minutes. It just keeps on a constant rotation. But I will say, it is great to see NG2 on the pad, ready to go. You know what they say, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen out there. And so right now, I'm going to toss it back over. Again, you are watching the webcast of NG2. We're at L minus 26 minutes before this historic launch.
All right, so we have the clock moving again. They seem to be saying that there are issues, but I don't. I would say that that's some sort of ground systems issues, but then why would they be running the clock? It could be that they're running it because they've reached the end of their launch window. And so if they're going to fly, they have to fly within these next 25 minutes. Any other delays, and they'll be done. So that could be what they have in mind with this, just to try to dial it down, see if they can rectify those issues. And then as far as the flames are concerned, there's questions regarding that. Any sort of use of methane, they have to burn the excess methane that's coming off of the fueling process in order to make sure that nothing explodes. So they burn that off as opposed to letting it accumulate in the air, which could, of course, create a lot of unpleasant flammable events. Get rid of all that excess methane that way. If you watch just about any Methalox related launch, you're going to see that sort of thing. These flame towers That's essentially burning off the excess stuff. So that being the case, by the way, for those of you who are 3i Atlas fans, Avilob just released a new article, which I just had a brief look at. And well, you know what? Why don't I just show you real quick for those who are interested? They have now gotten a better look at these anti-tail jets, and holy crap, these things are insane. And and I'm gonna be bringing you the details on that tomorrow. Again, that wasn't my original plan, but I'm gonna have to bring that to you because I'll tell you, there's some amazing discoveries that have made in regards to these things, these out of control, really powerful anti-tails. If they're natural, well, that means one thing. If they're not, it means something else. And just to make it clear, for them to be natural, some crazy stuff has to be taking place right now. So we're gonna know soon if this thing's artificial or not, because it's starting to push the boundaries of what's possible with natural objects. But anyway, let's go back to Blue Origin.
You know, being exhausted at supersonic, so faster than the speed of sound velocities. And that extra nozzle just gives you more momentum and higher specific impulse, right? 30 to 40 seconds more specific impulse, right? The analogy I like to use is if
Aaron,
I had
what's
a big
going
red
on with the
balloon,
audio?
here in front of me, it would have pressure inside of it as a chamber, like a pressure vessel, and I would be holding it by its nozzle. It's a very technical term. And if I let it go, the big red balloon would essentially fly away. So I'm not saying our rocket engines are big red balloons, but it's the analogy that I like to think of.
That's a good way.
At least they're
Eddie,
blue balloons.
yeah.
They're going to be balloons, Eddie.
They don't have to be
Come on.
red. They've been big blue
Sorry,
balloons.
big-
He also, I remember,
Yeah,
I went to
that's right.
one of his. He hosts these things here at Blue Origin where we can learn
Thank you,
more
Mr.
about
Northman.
updates with different
Thank
things
you.
happening with our engines. And he was explaining essentially the shower head method and how shower head is very similar to how an engine works. But Eddie, I think it's so great to be able to talk to him anytime about engines. And we're so grateful for him. Of course, he is out with our employees. The best viewing spot to see NG2 take to the skies. You're looking at NG2 right now on the pad, and in this moment, we're going to toss it back over to the rocket because coming up here shortly, we have a very exciting go, no go poll. So we're going to toss it over the rocket and kind of await that poll.
All right, so here we go. Less than 20 minutes now in the countdown. So fingers crossed, guys. I'm not sure if we're going to get a go ahead from the go no go poll. I think that the countdown is being run simply because this is all the time they have available to them in the current launch window. If there are still ground system issues, this go no go poll, then they're almost certainly going to scrub this launch today. That will create some problems, complications, because the FAA is beginning to impose a no flights during daytime sort of arrangement for commercial launches. And officially, this is a commercial launch. Even though it's a NASA launch, it has been outsourced to two commercial outfits, to Blue Origin and to Rocket Lab. And so, that being the case, the FAA may interpret this as being a commercial launch and therefore something that's not going to be doable during the daytime, in which case they may have to try to move the schedule to nighttime launch, which will complicate matters in a lot of ways. It's never easier to launch at night than it is during the day. Generally, you're not going to launch at night unless you have a really good reason to. There is no good reason to launch at night currently, because this is not a mission that's taking advantage of a narrow launch window when the target, that is to say Mars, is in a particular location that you have to take advantage of, given the orbit of the Earth, the rotation of the Earth, the orbit of Mars, etc. So that being the case, launching at night would certainly be possible for this type of mission. But again, not something that I would prefer to do. This government shutdown is really creating significant issues, not just with these kinds of launches, but also with things like 3i Atlas. NASA continues to jealously hold on to those photographs that were taken by the high-rise, high-resolution cameras that they have orbiting Mars. Those images were captured now 36 days ago, and they still have not been released.
We're still pending GME final configurations and LVHD retraction, also pending weather. This is the go poll for final configs and terminal count. GC.
GC is go pending retraction of LVHD 10.
LC1.
LC1 is no go pending day of launch PDI load.
Understand you are a go pending the load. LC2.
LC2 is go.
LSO.
Go.
OSM.
Go with the exception of weather.
RC.
Go.
ESR.
ESR go pending LVHD and PDI.
AC.
Go pending LVHD retraction.
Recovery.
Go.
GLI.
Go.
BMD.
Go.
GC, LC1, LC2. Perform final configurations for terminal count. Report when ready for terminal count gate checks.
LC2 copy.
This is RC and count 1.
GC copy.
Go ahead, RC.
A lot of potential sea surveillance violation with a cruise ship. We're still working on Coast Guard to make contact.
Oh, God.
I'll give you an update as soon as I have it.
We have a violation.
LD copies.
A cruise ship, for God's sake. What were those idiots thinking? Oh, God.
So you just heard the go poll there. It seems like a conditional go according to the weather. So we are going to continue to our terminal count, and we're going to continue to also keep an eye on the
Thank you,
weather.
Mr.
So
Northman.
lots of
Appreciate your
things that
support.
we are tracking at this moment in time.
I think we should note there just a second. So first of all, our launch director, Megan Lewis, that lady is a boss.
Yes.
She is fantastic. There's a lot of things to coordinate there, and you heard various teams giving their go, no go, and go pending. And obviously we have to track a lot, especially in these last 15 minutes. And her job in that room is to coordinate. You saw the people in the front room, but then there's also essentially what's like an engineering support room in the back.
Yeah.
So that they go off and they track things, they run things down and report back on making these clears. So they are go pending because they want to launch this rocket, and they think that there's still a chance here. So more drama.
Yeah, we're excited. This has been quite the show. As you are watching NG2, we're at L-14 minutes, but in order to build a road to space for the benefit of Earth, we've got to radically reduce the cost of access to space by having our reusable rockets. So here's everything that you need to know.
All right, so they're again kind of running out of things to talk about, it seems. Hold on, what we got? Okay, never mind. That's just that's impressive. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that process as they're standing that thing up. That's actually kind of cool, given how massive that rocket is. That's very interesting. So yeah, we have a cruise ship with a range violation. That's of course frustrating. It's hard to believe that we have a damn cruise ship that we're talking about navigation. Navigation on these things should be a lot more precise in this. They should be well aware of any launches that are taking place from the Cape and where the launch exclusion zone is. Just unbe That's what's causing part of this. That's unbelievable and frustrating ineptitude. But there are other things. There are other factors. We seem to have some weather-related issues. There are quite a number of issues that seem to be contributing to problems here. I would say the odds of this flight going are pretty low now. I would give it maybe a 10%, 10 to 20% chance of going, given the complications. However, keep in mind that Blue Origin is also dealing with FAA problems. They don't go today, their ability to go in the future might be really hindered by FAA daytime launch restrictions. That's going to become more and more of a problem. Oh, this mission's been planned for years. This is a long-term mission, but it's taken a considerable amount of time to come up with an alternate flight plan. The original flight plan was to fly in 2024 on the maiden launch of New Glenn, the first launch of New Glenn. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned before during this broadcast, New Glenn, or rather the Rocket Lab, really rushed their delivery of their spacecraft to get them out here in time, the ESCAPADE spacecraft, in order to meet the demands of the New Glenn first launch. And then it turned out that it didn't go when it was supposed to, didn't meet the launch window. And so as a result, yeah, just very frustrating thing for Rocket Lab after all the effort they put into that, not launch when they're supposed to. And now this new launch configuration for this year, a lot more complicated because the Earth and Mars are very far away from each other. So as a result, they're having a launch that's going to loiter around the Lagrange 2 point out in space until Mars is in a better position. And as I mentioned before, we have a statement here which is quite accurate. The FAA has these restrictions on commercial space launches during the day because they have to divert flights around them, and they don't have the personnel to handle that right now because of the government shutdown. The government shutdown really starting to impact space on a lot of different levels. Let's go ahead and bring back Blue Origin and see what they have to say. We are officially at 10 minutes
This is a really
from
big
liftoff.
moment for Blue Origin. Can you tell me how NG2 compares to NG1?
Yeah, I think NG1 was obviously our first mission. There was lots to learn, and we did learn a lot, and unbelievably successful in that we made our goal, which was to get to orbit. This time we're going to be a little bit more ambitious, and we want to not only get to orbit, but we have our first paying customer this time with ESCAPADE and get them off to Mars. That's the first part of our goal, and then the second part of the goal is to land the booster out on Jacqueline. And if we don't, we have more over here in the factory that we're building, but we're going to give it our best shot.
Never tell me the odds is pretty fitting for this booster. We are taking our second attempt at landing it for the first time. How are you going to feel if we land it?
Well, I certainly will not channel my inner C-3PO. I will be very ecstatic. I would be on pins and needles up to that point, but it would be a huge achievement for the team and for Blue. I think that we have a good chance, but if we don't, like I said, we can build more, but I will be over the moon if it happens.
Now, New Glenn is obviously just one of the many systems we have here, right? We have New Shepard, we have Lunar, we have In-Space Systems. How are all of those organizations really working together to further our ultimate goals?
Yeah, I think each component of what we do has a piece of trying to get millions of people to work and live in space, and they all have their individual. But as it relates to this particular mission, a huge amount of people have put work into it. Obviously, our engines team in building both the engines for the booster, the BE-4s, and the BE-3Us for the upper stage. We also have a huge amount of work by the obviously New Glenn team building this vehicle, but also New Shepard has been a pathfinder. So all our avionics fly on New Shepard first, so that we can get a sense of what's going on there and get a sense what it's like to have flight-ready hardware. And so it takes a whole team, and it's a very big cross-functional effort across Blue.
We have more than 10,000 employees here that are very excited about this moment. I'm one of them. What is your message to those who are going to be watching our webcast and be watching NG2 take to the skies?
Well, I think everybody will be a little bit on pins and needles, I'm sure. But I would say that this is a culmination of a lot of work from a lot of teams. It's not the end point of our journey. Obviously, we have a lot more rockets to make and a lot more customers to make happy as we move forward. But to the extent we're successful here, I hope everybody at Team Blue takes a pause, smiles a bit, celebrates, because it'll be a great achievement for us. And we'll take that deep breath, we'll sort of embrace the moment and then move on, because we have a lot of customers waiting for us to succeed. And there's nothing that makes you happier in business and in your life when you see the smile on customers' faces.
Did you ever think that you would be doing something like this in your career when you're watching your rockets launch? No?
No, not in a million years. I was very happy making Fire TVs and Echoes, but it is a boyhood dream, and so to be able to have it, I kind of pinch myself every day and just amazed that I get to wake up and help this and lead this amazing team of people build incredible technology like New Glenn.
I mean, and a reference to that, one of the first things they ask you when you come onto Blue Origin is, what is your first memory of space? What is your first memory of space?
Yeah, I have a lot of pictures. It turned out my third, fourth, and fifth birthday, I have these old Polaroids of the cake, and they all have rockets on it. I was enamored with rockets as a kid, and never took the path where I thought I'd be running a rocket or a rocket company, but it turns out that it was very early in my life that I had a lot of love for it.
And we're so grateful to have you here at the helm. Dave, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it was such a great interview to have a moment to sit down with our CEO and talk with him. If you are just tuning in, this is the launch of NG2. We are at L minus under 6 minutes, and we have to tell you guys, right now we are tracking a cruise ship that is in the area and closely tracking weather, as we heard in the go poll. But my understanding is that by the time it comes to our moment of launch, that cruise ship should be out of the way, but we are still keeping our eyes on that weather, Ariane.
Absolutely, but with that, we're under 6 minutes to go. Let's go out to Eddie, because you realize we're about 5 minutes to go from the launch. Eddie, how's everybody feeling out there?
Yeah, it is hype out here. We are so excited to be at less than 5 minutes before launch. We're excited to be here.
Eddie, is that guy on a chicken? A rooster?
Yeah, we got rooster, and the flag. Everybody's ahead, rooster. An Escapade, and this is the team that's launching the rocket today. They helped build it.
amazing. They are absolutely psyched. And what we're waiting for here is a go, no go, a final go, no go. We're bringing this down to the minute on this one. We want to launch before our window, so we're waiting on the team to determine if that's way to go.
Oh, Eddie. Let's go blue. Let's go blue. Thank you so much. We are hyped. They are hyped. Since we are at essentially L minus 4 minutes, let's go ahead and toss it back over to the rocket right now.
We're on another hole, guys. And I would say this is probably our final one. I would say we are going to have a scrub here in just a moment. Waiting for an official word for that. Folks, don't forget the giveaway for the shirt is still happening today, whether there's a launch or not. And then I think I've got a spare shirt around here, and I'll be able to offer it if we for another giveaway when we do it again, when they go for their next launch attempt. So in any event, make sure to hang around for the giveaway. And in addition to that, I have something else I would like to make sure that I say in regards to a very important day that's happening today. That is very important indeed to the citizens of all Commonwealth nations, and a day that's important to me as well. So make sure you hang around for just a little bit, assuming we actually get a scrub. All right, folks, we are still waiting at 4.5 minutes. Waiting to see if we get any sort of word here. I'm going to check on a couple of sources real quick to see whether or not might have an announcement of a scrub. Waiting here. Boy, I'll tell you, that 3i Atlas news that just came out, it's already just going like viral everywhere. It's crazy. Let's see. Let's see if we have any word. What? All right, so we got no clock. At this point, it's a scrub seems very, very likely. But once again, we need to wait until we get an official. Yes, Aaron. Each individual. Yeah, if you can just do a random selection. Each Correct. Each individual chat counts. Yeah, I'd say there's some people saying it looks like a D tank and all that. So folks, we're going to go ahead and set up this giveaway really quick though. I want to go ahead and make an announcement for you folks, or something that I just like to make sure everybody keeps in mind. For those of you who are not Commonwealth members, British or Australian, Canadian, etc. You need to remember that today is what's called Remembrance Sunday. It's a day where like Commonwealth soldiers are remembered, the sacrifice veterans are remembered. And by the way, I observe this myself for one reason, because of the fact that I live here. But in addition to that, my grandfather back in 1917 made the journey. He volunteered as a soldier in the U.S. Army as a doughboy to come over to Europe to fight alongside the French against the Germans in the Great War. Uh, I've had pictures of him in front of the Eiffel Tower. Can't imagine the experience and the excitement, but also the fear that he experienced, given the fact that most of the guys that he shipped out with from his little town in North Dakota were killed or injured in combat within weeks of arriving at the Western Front. So it was a terrible, terrible time, terrible, horrible sacrifice. And also, in this day and age, Britain also likes to remember the Germans who died as well in the First World War, and those who have died in senseless conflicts ever since then. And so, in any event, it's just to I have always had the deepest respect for the military, the armed forces of the United Kingdom, and for all of the nations who have consistently supported the UK over the years, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and others, at really difficult times in history, especially in times when Britain and the Commonwealth stood alone against Hitler after every other nation in Europe had fallen under the jackboot of the Nazis, and Britain stood alone for a considerable period of time before, as Winston Churchill said, the new world came to the rescue of the old. So, all of you may just take a moment to remember the sacrifice of those folks, and we will move forward to our drawing. Aaron, go ahead if you have the list ready. Sure. Uh, our producer is really quickly throwing together all of the super chats to make sure that we do a fair, fair. And yes, just to be clear, when I said stood alone, the Commonwealth stood alone, and that meaning Britain, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand stood alone against Hitler, which was a tough moment, let me tell you. Go ahead. All right, for our winner for this random drawing, we have somebody who's been a longtime supporter of this channel, fellow who's been supporting my channel forever. And he's come up as the winner today in a random selection, and that is Mike Maxey in Houston, Texas. I don't even need to ask where he's from or anything. I know where he's from. Amazing that he came up as the winner on this one, and I assure you, it was all completely random. So, in any event, Mike Maxey, congratulations! You are the winner of a 3i Atlas T-shirt. Make sure to send me your mailing address information so I can get this out to you. And folks, we are going to take another shot at this when Blue Origin is ready to go again. And I think I've got another shirt that I can scrape up to give away again for the folks who want to come back. So if you missed out this time, don't worry. You'll get another shot in the next live stream. Really appreciate it. This is the nature of spaceflight, guys. It is a very difficult thing to do, especially to do it safely and with the maximum chance of success. Everybody scrubs at one time or another. So we wish all the best to Blue Origin and to Rocket Lab for a successful mission in the future. Thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, stay angry about space.